Is your car making a crazy noise? You don't know what's going on? I have got the video for you. Let's get started. So hey, welcome back. I'm your favorite car girl next door, and we are going to talk about what's that sound you're probably hearing on your car. I've got the Wizard's cute little Fiat 500e here, and yes, even though it's E, it can still make some noises. I've got two categories today. One is wheels and suspension, and then the engine. So before we get started with today's video, I want to thank you guys for my last part work auction sales. Everything sold, and I am so happy that they are making their way to new homes. Hopefully they're going to be under somebody's Christmas tree and make somebody else's life so much better, because they were so much fun to make. I'm going to work on getting more ready, but not this year. It'll have to be into 2025. So if you're interested in them, keep an eye out. Maybe even follow us on eBay. But anyway, but let's get back to what's wrong with your car and why is it making those noises? The first thing we're going to focus on are the brakes. And there's basically two ways your brakes can make a sound. The first one is the brake pad itself. And you probably have heard this either with your own car, or maybe you've heard it on somebody else's car. And that's as the brake gets worn down thinner and thinner and thinner, the material gets, less, and there's actually a part of it that makes it squeak as it's running across that disc in your wheel. So what is it saying? Well, that's saying, hey, you need to get your brakes changed. It's not detrimental to do it immediately, but you don't want to wait months and months and months. You need to get it scheduled in when it's convenient to get those brakes done. The second one is much louder, and it's constant. It's constantly making the sound, not just when you press the brake, but all the time. And that's probably meaning that your caliper, that's this part that's holding that brake pad in there, has squished, and for one of two reasons. One, it has just jammed its way out and can't retract like it should, or you have let your brakes go for so long, the pad is pretty well gone, and it has pushed, the caliper is pushed out so far that it is now making contact with that rotor all the time. At this point, you're probably going to need the new caliper, the new brake pads, and a rotor at this point. So it's gotten much more expensive. Can this happen if you ignore your brakes? Yeah, maybe, but it can also just happen on its own. The next ones I have, I'm going to move to the back here because this can happen in the front or the back. But if you're driving around, notice all of these are going to be when you're driving, not just when it's running, when you're actually moving the car. And these can happen with an electric car. But all of the stuff we're talking about so far can be on this car as well. And that's if you go along and you hit a bump, a small bump, and you hear a little bit of a clunking sound. What does that mean? Well, it's nothing too serious usually, but usually it's your sway bar links, maybe your bushings, and maybe even just the caliper itself, being that it's not pushed out all the time, but maybe it has come loose and you're hearing a little bit of a clunk. As you go over a little bump, you'll hear little sounds like that. Again, need to get that taken care of. Not totally detrimental to get it done immediately, but you want to make sure you get those done. But that's just a little bit of a clonking sound. The next one, a big clunk. You go over and it feels like, whoa, that was a big sound. I should not have heard that sound going over a bump, a railroad crossing, maybe you're getting into a driveway. That is when it can get more serious. That could be a strut or a spring on an older car, or it could even be your control arm itself. All of those are really serious. You don't want to, your strut goes out, your car's not going to be bouncing good at any time. The control arm, well, they call it the control arm because it's controlling the movement of the car. You don't want it to, if that thing breaks, you may lose some steering ability. These are bad things to have happen. So the next one I have is you hear a roaring sound. And the sound actually can get louder as you're going faster. That is a wheel bearing, okay? And Wizard had a Volkswagen Bug at one time. I think it was the purple one. And he ended up doing all four wheel bearings, because there's one on all four wheels, because he would fix one. He would hear that sound. Oh, okay, it's fixed. Then he would fix the next one. Oh, I still hear it. It was like rotating, it literally was rotating around the car. And he fixed the loudest one first, and then he's like, oh, well, I still hear it. Oh, I'm gonna fix the next one. And you can actually usually isolate the sound of where it's kind of coming from. It's coming from the front, coming from the back on any of these. But in this case, that wheel bearing, that's in that center section. And if it goes out, you hear this sound and you're like, oh, it's nothing, it's fine. The car's just making that noise for a while now. The longer you wait, what could happen is that wheel bearing could actually seize up, and it can actually make it to where you could not drive the car anymore and wreck. So it is one of those things you definitely need to get taken care of. But again, that's that constant roaring sound. The next one I have, before we move on to the engine bay, is this one scared the crap out of me the first time I ever heard this sound. Because I was used to all these other sounds and clunks and, but this one was when I was driving on a dirt road, and all of a sudden I hear this loud, shrill sound. It was really, really loud. Just this grinding sound, really bad. I'm like, what is that? And I looked to the wizard. I'm like, what is going on? What just happened? Nothing really serious. We were driving on a dirt road. We have a lot of those here in Kansas, and we actually used to live on one before we moved into No Muffler Newton. And what happened was that the wheel, because they're now so open, they used to be very closed, used to have more hubcaps on them, rocks couldn't get in, but now we can get in there, and a little pebble got between the brake pad and was riding along the rotor. And you know how I fixed it? Wizard said, just hit the brakes, not super hard, but some pressure. Hit the brakes kind of hard, flung it out, crushed it. I'm not sure which, but never made that sound again. But that absolutely scared the crap out of me. I was like, what is going on with the car? I could tell it was with the wheel, but I didn't know. I've never heard that one before. So those are the sounds that your suspension can make when you're driving. Now let's go into the engine bay. So I would open the, hood, but there's no engine in there. It's an electric car. And so this one you're not going to actually hear on this car, but you will on any other gas-powered car, and that is a belt squeal. That belt that squiggles its way, called the serpentine belt, around the front, that can make a squealing sound, and it can do it for multiple reasons, really. One, the belt can be dying, okay? That can be one. Another reason is one of the pulleys. Any of those components in the front of your car could start to go bad. The little disc in there could be your AC compressor, your alternator, your water pump, if it's powered that way. There's lots of things in the front of that engine that spin that serpentine belt, and one of them could be, getting harder to turn, and it makes that squealing sound. It could be some fluid from the engine is leaking onto it, and if it has an oily consistency to it, it's going to slip on one of those pulleys, which can make a squealing sound. Now, is this serious? Yeah, it really is. If the serpentine belt comes off or breaks, well, then the accessories to your engine are no longer running, and that can be a very big problem. Your alternator is no longer charging the battery. Your water pump is no longer pumping water and cooling your engine. So yeah, you need to get that addressed quickly before it leaves you stranded on the side of the road. And my last one, and this one is becoming a less and less of a problem for more modern cars. And again, this does not apply to this car because it doesn't have it. And so many of today's cars no longer have this as an option. But if you hear a sound when you're turning the corner, so you're turning that wheel and you're going around that corner, and you hear kind of a whine sound, it means your power steering, but there's something wrong with your power steering. Either your power steering is low, or maybe your power steering pump is going out, and you hear that sound. So that's basically what's going on. If those are the sounds you're hearing with your car, these might help you. Does it fix the problem? No, your mechanic is going to have to fix that, and I'm not the mechanic. I just know how to work, a lot about cars. I have a car wizard. I hope you have a car wizard in your life too. If not, I have another video that talked about how to find your one for yourself. Otherwise, glad you're with me today. Please share this video with somebody you think that could benefit from it. Again, I'll see you later. Bye.